Do you realize all these companies that had these major breaches? Do you realize all of them? Welcome to Life of a CISO. I'm Dr. Eric Cole, your host, and we'll be taking you on a journey each week on what it takes to be a CISO and what are solutions that you can implement today if you are currently a Chief Information Security Officer or if you want to be one in the future. This is Life of a CISO. Welcome to this week's edition of Life of a CISO with yours truly, Dr. Eric Cole. I tell you, I always laugh when a plan comes together, right? I didn't plan it this way, but it's just a few days after Christmas, December 25th, and I am recording the 25th episode, right? I wish I could have done it live on the 25th, but I don't think anyone would have listened, right? So here we come as we, depending on when this launches, we're either finishing up 2020 or we're starting 2021. Either way, happy holidays. Welcome. Thank you for always joining me. I'd love to hear from you. So if you have questions, post them below. You can always reach out to me directly at ecole, E-C-O-L-E, at secure-anchor.com. What I like to always do as we wrap up a year is sort of take a look at what happened, what occurred, what we can learn, and what more appropriate than finishing up this year with the SolarWinds breach and all these other breaches coming to light. And I'll tell you, I just sort of have to shake my head, and I'm calling myself out with everyone else. As cybersecurity professionals, let's face it, as we enter 2021, we got to step it up. We really have to start focusing on the core fundamental problems of security. One of the things that I think is very, very dangerous is we believe by calling an attack an advanced attack. Ooh, the boogeyman is going to come against you. It's the advanced attack is an excuse for lax security. I see this with the SolarWinds and some of these recent breaches of some of these other high-tech cybersecurity companies where they'll go in and say, oh, it was an advanced nation-state attack. Therefore, there was nothing we could have done about it, right? We fell victim just like everyone else. And I want to be careful here. While it is true that if you have functionality, 100% security doesn't exist. It's like with anything in life. Saying you are 100% secure and will never, ever get breached is just as naive as saying you are the perfect specimen of a human, you are 100% healthy, and you will never, ever get sick for the rest of your life. That's just not practical, right? It's going to happen. As long as you're going out, you're meeting people, you're living your life, the probability of every one of you getting sick at some point in your life is almost a guarantee. However, that doesn't mean we should be going around being sloppy, right? That doesn't mean we should be going and finding out people that have contagious diseases and start licking them. I mean, it's crazy, right? So it's one of those things where it's saying, yeah, I know everyone is going to get sick anyway, so I'm not going to wear a coat. I'm not going to be careful of who I hang around with. If somebody's coughing and sneezing, I'm going to breathe in the air they sneeze, right? I'm not going to take care of myself. I'm not going to eat vitamins. I mean, that's just crazy, right? There are some cases where people didn't have to get sick if they were a little more careful, if they put on a coat, if they ate a little more vitamin C, if they built up their immune system. There are some cases where you could have prevented getting sick. Not all, but there are some. So I think we have to be careful here that if we're sloppy with our health and our immune system and we do get sick when we didn't need to, we shouldn't just go, oh, we were going to get sick anyway, so why bother? Why eat healthy? Why be safe? Why do any of those things? Right? That's crazy. We wouldn't do that in the real world because it just doesn't make any sense. Yet I feel like that's what's happening in cybersecurity. We have companies saying, well, let me face it. We're going to get attacked. We're going to get compromised. So why try? Well, we're not going to patch. We're going to have weak passwords. We're going to have critical data exposed from the internet. We're not going to do outbound filtering. We're not going to do the basic things. So let's face it. We're going to get compromised anyway. That is crazy, right? That is nuts. So to me, one of the phrases I always like using, and it's very, very important as a CISO and a security professional, we really understand this. While it is true that you cannot prevent all attacks, and even if you put everything in place, compromises are still going to occur. That's not a valid excuse for poor security practices. Not patching, not doing the basic components. Once again, we don't have all the details, but I can almost guarantee some things for you because I've seen these breaches over and over and over again, and history is a good predictor of the future. Now, this could be the one case I'm wrong, right? I might not be correct here, but I'll tell you a few things. Over the next month or two, first, the probability that the attack being worse than it was originally projected. I think they're now talking maybe 20 or 30,000 customers. My guess is when all is said and done, there'll probably be another 0 or 2 on the end of that, right? It'll probably be 200,000 or 300,000. It's going to be a lot worse than what they originally projected. Second, it's most likely going to be caused because of some basic foundational security element wasn't followed. Weak passwords, systems weren't patched, segmentation wasn't in place. We just didn't follow the proper security practices. And third, and I hate to say this one, but this seems to be the trend, right? The last 5 breaches all had this in common, that before the truth comes out of what really happened, several of the executives at the companies that were compromised and breached are going to sell off significant portions of their stock. I mean, like I said, I'm reading from the history books here, people, so don't get mad at me. I'm not accusing and saying it's true in this specific case. I'm just saying when you see data after data after data in the history books, I'm just telling you what history teaches us. And once again, in a couple of months, I'll come back on and I'll be more than happy to say I was wrong and more than happy to say this truly was an advanced attack that wasn't preventable. But at least from what we're seeing, the articles we're seeing coming out, the different pieces of information, it sounds like there were systems that were outdated. There were systems that were missing patches. There were weak passwords in place on some of the systems that were compromised. So once again, we're going down to not having the proper security. I personally believe, based on, and I will limit it with limited information. So based on the limited information I have now, but I've been doing this for 30 years. So friends and family will tell you once in a while I'm wrong. Not always, but once in a while, right? I am wrong here. But what I will tell you here is most likely this was a preventable attack. This was an attack that regardless of whether the attacker was advanced or not, the means and methods of compromise weren't advanced. And it was preventable. That's just my guess, just a prediction here, but let's let history play it out. But the lesson learned for U.S. security leaders, U.S. strategic thinkers, is quite simple. Many attacks that are happening, most of the major breaches that I have seen over the last 3 years, at some level, if not completely, were preventable attacks. I think we need to be careful. When we say we're dealing with an advanced adversary, that doesn't mean that every attack is advanced. When we're saying advanced adversaries or advanced threats or nation-state attacks, what we're saying is you have an organization or an entity that has advanced capabilities, that has advanced means and methods for breaking in. But that doesn't mean they're going to use them. The way an advanced adversary works is they're going to use the simplest, easiest way to break in. Now, yes, you might have an advanced robber, and this robber might know how to bypass alarm systems. They might know how to go in and bypass motion sensors. and be able to do all the stuff you see in Hollywood movies, right? With the mirrors and get around all those advanced techniques and methods. But the bottom line is, if you own a mansion and you leave the front door unlocked and you don't set the alarm and you go on vacation for a week, yes, the attacker does have advanced capabilities. But if they walk up to your house and they see that the front door is unlocked and they look in and realize the alarm isn't set, do they need to use advanced methods to break in? Absolutely not. And the real question is, in that case, if you left the front door unlocked, you didn't set the alarm, that specific instance of the attack could have been prevented. It absolutely could have been prevented. Now, I will give some credit here, but we have to be careful going down this road. I was on a panel recently, and somebody was defending these companies going, but Eric, I agree with you. This specific attack, and we were talking about one where it was well known, yes, was equivalent to leaving the front door unlocked and the alarm turned off. It was an unpatched system with critical data residing on an internet-facing system that didn't have proper encryption. They said, you're right, Eric, that absolutely could have been prevented. But if the attacker really wanted to get in, they could have still used advanced techniques. Even if it was patched, even if the data wasn't on those servers and on back-end systems, if it was a really determined advanced adversary, they still could have potentially got in. And I said, that's true, but we don't know that. What we know is the specific vector of attack was preventable. Now, whether the attacker would or would not have used advanced techniques, whether they were really going to target that organization, and whether it would take 3 years or 3 months or 3 weeks to get in, we are switching from nonfiction to fiction. We don't know that because we never did the basics. We didn't secure the foundational items that were in place. So as we finish up this year and enter the new year, if you are a CISO or a security leader, it's real simple. If we go in and historically look at all these attacks, including the recent ones, you need to come down and do asset inventory. You need to know all your assets, especially internet-facing systems. Now, what's interesting is when we're looking at targeting or attacking. I've written a lot of books on the subject of cybersecurity. I wrote one of the first hacking books, Hackers Beware. And it's a real thick book because I give a lot of methods and techniques and means and methods. But let me break it down for you. When we're talking about hacking and offense and breaking in and red teaming and ethical hacking or whatever name you want to give it, it really comes down to some fundamental principles. Finding a target, exploiting a weakness, and accessing data. That's really what attacking is. So if I'm looking at a company and I'm going to hack or break in, if I put on my evil offensive hat and I'm going to run advanced nation state attacks, I have to find a target. And that target is either a server or a client. Now, what's interesting is when we're talking about ransomware or pure play direct financial driven attacks, most of those target clients. Most of those are various forms of phishing or spear phishing attacks against organizations. So that's where you're getting an email, and the one that I see all the time today, and it's still going to work for a while, is a subject line that says 5 of your coworkers or 5 of your child's schoolmates infected with COVID. And then the body says something along the lines of somebody you or your child might have been in direct contact with. How appropriate, I'm coughing as we talk about COVID. That wasn't planned. Tested positive for COVID. Click the link to find out more details. People are paranoid. People are fearful. You know you are clicking on that link. And if you're not, you can definitely name 5 people that would. So that's the attack we're seeing. And those are more ransomware, where your data's held ransom or your system's held ransom. And those are direct targeted. Those can impact companies. But when we're talking about large-scale data theft and large records, or in this case with SolarWinds, where there was malicious code put in and distributed to clients. Essentially, critical data or assets got accessed. In almost all these cases, it's almost coming from a server. And in almost all these cases, like I said, hopefully we'll find out the truth with the SolarWinds attacks relatively soon. But my guess is it's similar to all the others. System accessible from the internet, missing patches, containing critical data or has access to critical data that's not properly protected or encrypted. And that's pretty much what it always comes down to. So what we really want to focus in, if we're looking at the large-scale data theft attacks, is asset inventory from systems visible from the internet, making sure they're patched, and making sure they do not contain critical data. If you do those three things, I can't tell you 100% because we don't know the details, but I can tell you with all the major breaches that have happened, non-ransomware, right? We covered that separately, but the major data breaches that we've seen over the last 3 years, if the companies would have knew about all of their internet-facing assets, they were fully patched, and none of them contained critical data, the current attacks that happened would not have occurred. Now, whether the attacker would have tried something else or would have tried other variants, we don't know. It is speculation at that point. But if you go in as a CISO and security leader and you know 100% of your internet-facing assets, they are fully patched and up to date, and none of them contain critical data, you would have stopped the current attacks that we have seen. That is the current method of the advanced adversaries. Now, yes, they have other plays in their playbook, but let's focus on the current play they're running. Let's not go in and speculate. Let's fix the current problem. Now, let's break it down, because you're probably sitting there going, but Eric, seriously, you're telling me that these big companies, whether it's recent attacks of security companies or software vendors, or it's previous hotel chains or healthcare providers, or these large Fortune 100 or 500 organizations that are spending money on security, and they have security budgets and they have teams and they have security operations center. You're sitting there telling me, Eric, that they're not patching, that they don't know their assets, that they don't know what's going on. Come on, I can't believe that to be true. So I studied this because I agree with you. I was sitting there saying there's no possible way they don't know any of their assets. There's no possible way they're not patching at all. But what I realized is, and I just nicknamed this the rule of 90%. It's probably a little higher, 95% or 97 or 98, but 90% sounds good, and you'll get the feel of it. But here's what I found in these companies. They are absolutely tracking their critical assets. They know about 90%. And they know their assets, and about 90% of them are patched, and 90% of their critical data is encrypted, and 90% of their information is protected, and 90% of their servers are secure. Hopefully, you're getting the idea here. And what's happening is this. In most of our life, we're trained that 90% is pretty good. In most cases, I know when I was in school, if it was advanced classes like Calc 3 or differential equations or physics 27 or however many times I had to take that class on there, 90% was pretty darn good. Right? If I got a 90% on my physics fund, I was pretty happy. Now, I'll be honest with you, no, I wasn't. I was the crazy overachiever, right? I had to get that 100, right, or 105 or 110, which cracks me up today because when I went to school, the highest GPA you could have was a 4.0. And somehow now, I was talking to my friend's kid and they're like, I have a 5.2. I'm like, how is that possible? Right? Come on. Like a 4.0 is the highest. Let's get real here. I mean, we're making crazy rules up, but focus, Eric, focus. So the point is, we've been trained in most of our lives that 90% is pretty darn good. So we're thinking 90% on asset inventory and patching and security and all those things are pretty good. Here's the problem. If you have 1,000 servers and you're doing 90%, that's 100 servers that you don't know about. Even if we go in and we want to say 95%, that's still 50 servers And even if you say 98%, that's still 20 servers. And the thing in these attacks is they only have to find one. So what you need to do as a security leader is when it comes to these core foundational items, and I'll give you the foundational and then I'll give you the bonus. The foundational items are asset inventory, patching. If you want a gold star, configuration management, that's the next level of patching, but we'll stick with patching for now, and passwords. So asset inventory, you know all your assets, they're fully patched, and all your passwords for external facing systems are two-factor authentication, and they never contain critical data. 100%. If you want to win this game called cybersecurity, if you want to stop the current attacks we're seeing, if you want to get into the playbook of the adversary, then in those 4 areas of asset inventory, patching, passwords, and external systems never containing critical data, you cannot get anything other than 100%, 100% in those areas. Now, I want to be careful here. I know I'm getting excited. My cough comes out when I get excited. I want to be careful because I have some people push back and go, but Eric, I've listened to your other recordings. I've listened to other tapes you've done, and you say you can't achieve 100% security. I agree. I'm not saying that. Let's face this. If you know 100% of your external assets, 100% are patched, 100% of external passwords from the internet in are two-factor authentication, and they never contain critical data, those 4 things are 100%. Let me be crystal clear. You are not 100% secure. You can still get broken into. There are still other weaknesses. You can have insider threats. You can have phishing attacks against individuals. There's still other ways to break in. So I'm not saying by doing those 4 things 100%, you're 100% secure. What I'm saying is you're going to stop the current play that the adversary is running against organizations. This is the current play they've been running for 3+ years, probably even longer. But I have the data for 3 years, so I'm going to stick with that number. So if you want to stop the current play, if you want to make sure that with the current method they're using, they don't score on your organization, what you need to focus on is for all assets from the internet, you have 100% asset inventory, they're 100% patched, all remote logins are two-factor authentication, and none of those external systems contain critical data. That's what you need to focus on. Now, I know some of you have been watching my show for months. You've been taking my classes and you're like, oh no, Eric, we got that. We're there. Give us the next level. Great. The next level are 3 additional things. This is advanced after the foundation. If you don't have 100% on the foundation, don't go to the advanced level. But if you want to move to the advanced level, here we go. We upgrade our patching for configuration management. Now we know and understand all the software that's installed on our systems, and we have it protected with application whitelisting. Configuration management enforced with application whitelisting is probably one of the most effective ways to protect and secure a system. Now, if you're not familiar, application whitelisting is quite simple. You have a list of approved software. Only this software is allowed to run on the system. And whenever you run the executables, all related libraries, components, configuration files, anything that's needed is cryptographically hashed and verified to make sure that they haven't been altered or modified. Now think about this for a minute. If you have a system and all the software is valid and all the components that run are cryptographically hashed and verified, how are you going to break into that system? Because in order to break into that system and do harm, you have to run malicious code. And you can't run malicious code because malicious code isn't on the list. And you can't do any sort of injection attacks because all of the libraries and components are cryptographically hashed and verified. So if we go in and start using this tool has been out for a long time. Application whitelisting with configuration management is known for a while. We're just not using the methods that are out there. One of the things we get very dangerous in security is we always want the shiny new solution. I do this with clients all the time where I go in and they're like, Eric, there's this new behavioral analytic AI correlation tool that can automatically predict the future. And I'm like, great. I'm not saying whether it's good or bad. Let me ask you a question. Are all your systems patched? And do you have configuration management with asset and with application whitelisting? And they'll be like, oh no, but Eric, this tool will stop it. Stop it. We want to go in and we want to use all this advanced stuff, but we're not doing the basics. This reminds me of, I love going to the gym. And this time of year, there's kids, because they're hopefully going to be able to play sports. I'm a big fan of, we got to let our kids live their lives, right? We got to let them play sports and get out and interact. I won't go on my soapbox here, but the point is at my gym, they have a basketball court. And there's a lot of kids now doing basketball and stuff like that. And I just happen to be finishing off my exercise. I do a 3-way with the bench press where you do 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. So it's really a great way to burn out the muscles. I do it at the very end of my exercise, and it happens to overlook the basketball court. And I'm watching this kid play, and he keeps trying to shoot a 3-pointer. Like that's way out, that zone. He keeps trying to do the 3-pointer, and keeps missing it. And then I sort of start laughing because he goes to do a basic layup, and he misses it. He can't even do the basic layup. I was a basketball player. I was a point guard. I wasn't good enough, right, playing in college, but I was pretty good in high school. So I went in there, and I just smiled at him. I said, dude, it doesn't matter whether you can or can't make a 3-pointer. If you can't do a layup and the basic shot, you're not going to make the basketball team. I said, so if I was you, I would spend the next week or two in here for an hour a day just perfecting the layup. You should be able to do the layup from the left, from the right, blindfolded, sideways. You need to be able to get the basics down before you do the advanced. And it's funny because he smiled and he said, do I know you? And I said, no, why? He goes, really, this isn't a setup? And I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? I'm just trying here to help you out. I have kids too, and I'm always trying to help people and give them some advice. He goes, my coach told me the same thing, and I didn't listen to him. And I'm looking at him going, dude, right? So we had a good laugh and went back the next day, and guess what? He was in there going in and doing the layups after layups after layups. And I'll tell you, not saying this to pat myself on the back, but I like rewarding people. So the next day I came in, and he was doing the layups again. So I walked up to him. I said, dude, you're not always going to get rewarded in life, but I appreciate you listening to my advice. And I gave him a $25 gift card for Starbucks. You should have seen the smile on his face, right? The point is this: get the basics down before you do the advanced. So many companies are trying to spend money on doing these 3-points when they can't even do the basic layups. If you don't have asset inventory, if you don't have patching, if you don't have configuration management with application whitelisting, don't spend money because it's not going to work. Do you realize all these companies that had these major breaches? Do you realize all of them spent millions upon millions of dollars on advanced software? And it didn't protect them because they didn't have the foundations in place. So we covered our foundation. We're doing advanced. Advanced level 1 is configuration management with application whitelisting. Advanced number 2 is segmentation. We have to internally segment our networks. Once again, this Life of a CISO show, you're either going to love or you're going to hate, because I'm picking on everybody here. I know the software company didn't protect and secure their assets. But come on, all the commercial and government entities that had their systems and software on their network that got compromised? Where was segmentation? One of the rules, any time you have external connections coming in from third parties or vendors or anyone else, those need to be segmented. They need to be on separate VLANs and firewalled and isolated from the rest of the network. I mean, once again, this is not hardcore. I'm calling it advanced just relative to the other items, but it's really not that advanced. We need to do better segmentation. That could have also been contained and controlled. And then the third that I'm calling advanced, or maybe I should say level 2 basics, right? Because these aren't super advanced, but level 2 basics is outbound filtering. The way this attack was ultimately caught was because one organization actually had outbound filtering and saw unusual traffic going to IP addresses that it shouldn't go to. Prevention is ideal, detection is a must. But remember, inbound prevention, outbound detection. All outbound connections should be going through an outbound proxy and should be monitored looking for anomalous connections to unknown IP addresses. This is one of the most straightforward things. When you look at all your outbound connections, verify and validate, and then say, okay, this is our baseline of normal activity. We're going out to Microsoft, this, and this. Then, anything that's an anomaly, anytime there's new access to either new countries or new sites or new IP addresses, those should be flagged and reviewed to make sure that they are valid and correct. So as we finish up this year, foundation, asset inventory, patching, and passwords. Then level 2, foundation, or if we want to call advanced, you need to have configuration management with your application whitelisting. You need to have segmentation, and you need to have outbound filtering. I just gave you the playbook for success. I just gave you an unfair advantage. We just went in and I stole the playbook from your opponent. I snuck into the locker room of the offense that you're going to face. You're on the defense. And I just took their playbook and I showed you the plays they're going to run. And more importantly, I showed you how to stop those plays. So please go in and follow these core areas. I hope you have an amazing holiday season. We're going to have an amazing 2021. We're going to stay advanced as the adversary. As you can see, I'm fighting a little bit of a cold here. I was coughing a little bit, but guess what? I was putting this episode off because I was coughing a lot worse a few days ago, but I'm like, nothing is going to stop me from getting this message out to the world. So apologize. Right on cue with a few of those coughs. I hope you have an amazing finish up of this year and an amazing next year. Let's work together because I am 100% confident with the playbook of the adversary, we can stay ahead and we can absolutely make cyberspace a safe place to live, work, and raise a family.